Welcome to my channel Alien Signal. I never expected that my life would change because of a single word. As an interstellar linguist assigned to the diplomatic research vessel Ardent Horizon, my job was simple in theory but exhausting in practice: decode alien languages, identify communication patterns, and prevent misunderstandings that could escalate into war. Humanity had finally reached the stage where we weren't alone in the galaxy, and contact with extraterrestrial civilizations had become both a blessing and a constant diplomatic risk. The species we were studying when everything changed called themselves the Volrathi. They were tall, slender beings with translucent skin that shimmered under light like liquid glass. Their eyes had vertical pupils that shifted colors depending on emotion, and thin bioluminescent veins traced patterns across their faces and arms. They communicated primarily through a mix of sound pulses and subtle light fluctuations in their skin, a language that combined vocal expression with biological signals. We had been observing them for 6 months before first contact. The meeting took place on a neutral planetary station orbiting their homeworld. Humanity had insisted on transparency. The Volrathi agreed, cautiously. I was chosen to accompany Ambassador Hale as the language specialist. My role was not political power but precision. If words failed, war might follow. The first official encounter happened inside a circular chamber surrounded by crystalline walls that displayed the vast blue-green planet below us. And that was where I saw her. She stood among the Volrathi delegation, not in ceremonial armor like the warriors, nor in formal diplomatic robes like their negotiators. She wore something closer to a practical uniform woven from soft metallic threads that reacted to light. Her presence wasn't immediately commanding, but it felt intense, like gravity pulling attention toward her. Her name, translated through preliminary data, was Lorellan. She was one of their primary cultural interpreters, someone who understood cross-clan communication and symbolic language. That meant she was probably the best person in the room to judge whether humanity was a threat or a partner. Our eyes met briefly. Her skin shimmered faintly, an unfamiliar color pattern that my translation software flagged as curiosity mixed with caution. The ambassador began formal introductions. Protocol required me to remain silent unless asked to interpret. But as the conversation unfolded, something became clear: automated translation systems were failing to capture nuance. Words translated correctly in structure but lost emotional meaning. Several phrases from the Volrathi delegation were being interpreted by our system as neutral statements when they were actually culturally significant challenges. Tension slowly built. At one point, Lorellan stepped forward and spoke directly to me instead of the ambassador. Her voice produced layered harmonic tones, beautiful but complex. My implant struggled for half a second before rendering meaning. She asked, "Human linguist, do your people understand commitment beyond contracts?" The room went silent. It was a philosophical question, but also a subtle test. I felt every diplomat's gaze shift toward me. Instead of answering through the translator, something instinctive pushed me to respond differently. I had spent months studying fragments of their language, particularly one simple word that appeared repeatedly in their literature. A word associated with alliance, emotional bond, and lifelong unity. Pronunciation required adjusting vocal cords in a way that felt unnatural to humans, combined with a subtle throat vibration. I inhaled, and I spoke. The word, Vairasha. The sound felt strange leaving my mouth, heavy, resonant, imperfect. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lorellan's eyes widened. The bioluminescent veins along her arms ignited in rapid shifting patterns, bright gold mixing with soft blue. The chamber's ambient light sensors picked up a dramatic emotional spike. My translator instantly flooded my display with alert messages. Meaning interpretation. Word represents profound commitment. Equivalent to choosing a life bond. Context used traditionally during formal mating declarations or political alliance pledges. My heart dropped. What? I had studied the word academically, but I did not realize its depth in social function. Across from me, Lorellan stared as if processing a seismic revelation. The ambassador beside me whispered urgently, "What did you just say?" Before I could answer, Lorellan raised her hand. Her voice, now steadier, translated through my implant. "You speak our vow. Middle, misunderstanding becomes destiny. The diplomatic chamber erupted into controlled chaos. Vilrathi delegates began speaking rapidly among themselves. Human security personnel shifted positions instinctively. My ambassador looked like he wanted to physically drag me out of the room. I tried to explain. I didn't mean it literally, it was a linguistic test. I was demonstrating pronunciation accuracy. But explanation barely mattered. In Vilrathi culture, saying, Varisha, directly to an individual wasn't casual. It wasn't metaphorical. It was an intentional declaration that you recognized someone as a compatible life partner, or at minimum, someone worthy of binding alliance. It was traditionally followed by mutual acceptance, or rejection, and rejection required formal refusal rituals. Lorelyn stepped closer to me. Up close, I noticed details I hadn't seen before, faint shimmering patterns beneath her skin shifting in rhythm with her breathing. Her species did not hide emotion well. Everything was visible. You pronounced it correctly, she said softly. I studied it, I replied quickly. I did not intend it as a proposal. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Intent is secondary. Words create reality in my culture. I swallowed. That word means marriage. She tilted her head. It means choosing someone as a permanent counterpart, intellectual, emotional, and biological alignment. It is rare. It is sacred. My mind raced. Human diplomats were now watching this interaction like it was a live political disaster unfolding. Ambassador Hale approached carefully. Lorelyn, he said cautiously, our linguist did not intend to initiate a binding ritual. She turned her gaze to him. He triggered one. Silence fell again. Then she looked back at me, and instead of anger, I saw something unexpected. Curiosity, interest, perhaps even excitement. Most outsiders avoid our vows, she said. They consider them primitive or restrictive. You did not mock it. You used it properly. I used it academically, I insisted. Still, she replied, you were willing to speak it. Before I could respond, one of the senior Vilrathi elders approached. His presence radiated authority. He spoke in deep resonant tones. My implant translated. If the vow was spoken and received, tradition demands response. Lorelyn did not hesitate. She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth radiating from her skin. Then she spoke clearly. Human linguist. I accept your Varisha. My brain short-circuited. What? Her expression softened. You declared recognition. I return recognition. Wait. No, this is not how this works. But from the Vilrathi perspective, it absolutely did work. Accepting the vow meant formal mutual commitment. Around us, holographic recording devices activated automatically, documenting the exchange for cultural archives. I turned desperately toward Ambassador Hale. Sir, tell them this was miscommunication. He looked at me like a man witnessing history and disaster at the same time. I cannot undo cultural protocol, he whispered. The elder spoke again. Under our law, when Varisha is exchanged publicly and accepted, the bond becomes recognized by clan and council. My stomach dropped. So we are, legally, married? I asked weakly. Lorelyn's eyes shimmered with amusement. Yes. Climax. Consequences across worlds. The situation escalated faster than any negotiation crisis I had ever studied. News spread through Vilrathi society within hours. A human outsider had spoken their sacred vow, and a respected cultural interpreter had accepted it. Some factions interpreted it as diplomatic symbolism, a bridge between species. Others saw it as unprecedented integration. There were debates among their councils about whether this union represented political alliance or personal choice. On the human side, government officials scrambled. I was summoned to emergency briefings. They asked if I had been coerced. They asked if I felt threatened. They asked if the vow had legal implications for resource control or technology exchange. Meanwhile, Lorelyn stood beside me during every meeting, not as a passive observer but as someone actively defending the legitimacy of our bond. You misunderstand, she told a group of skeptical human officials. This was not manipulation. He spoke our word with respect. I chose to answer. It became clear quickly that she was not treating this as a mistake. She was treating it as opportunity. During private conversations, she explained something that shocked me further. Marriage in our culture is not possession, she said. It is collaboration between equals. If you had rejected me after speaking the vow, I would have respected it. But you did not reject me. I didn't know I was expected to. She smiled. Your ignorance does not erase your action. Over time, weeks turning into months, cooperation between our species deepened. Because of our bond, access to restricted cultural archives became easier. Scientific data was shared more openly. Human and Vilrathi researchers collaborated with unprecedented trust. Diplomats quietly admitted that the accidental vow accelerated alliance negotiations by years. And through it all, my relationship with Llewellyn evolved beyond political symbolism. We studied together. We debated philosophy. We compared concepts of love between species. She asked me once, would you have spoken the word if you understood its consequences? I considered carefully. No, she nodded. Then fate intervened. Or stupidity. She laughed, a beautiful layered sound. Ending, from accident to choice. 6 months after the incident, a formal ceremony was held on the Vilrathi homeworld. It was not a forced ritual. It was a recognition ceremony acknowledging that the vow had been exchanged and consciously sustained. Human representatives attended. Vilrathi elders approved. During the ceremony, Llewellyn and I stood before both species. The elder asked us one final question. Do you both choose to continue the bond freely? This time, there was no misunderstanding. I looked at her. I saw the woman who challenged me intellectually, defended me politically, and stood beside me publicly. I realized something important. What began as accidental pronunciation had transformed into genuine connection. Yes, I said. Llewellyn answered without hesitation. Yes. Bioluminescent patterns surged across her skin. Bright and radiant. Applause echoed through the chamber. Our bond became more than a cultural anomaly. It became a symbol that misunderstanding can create opportunity. That curiosity can lead to connection. And that sometimes, speaking one word in someone's language, can change the trajectory of two civilizations. Years later, historians would record it as the moment humanity and the Vilrathi moved from cautious contact to partnership. But in my personal records, it will always be remembered as the day I accidentally proposed to an alien. And she said yes. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.